Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining us today because we're going to be unpacking a really short, but honestly incredibly potent piece of media. It's deeply revealing when it comes to men's internal emotional landscapes. You know, sometimes the most profound insights come in the absolute smallest packages, and our source text today hits the nail on the head. It's this brief audio transcript that basically acts as a raw, completely unfiltered window into a psychological state that, frankly, is rarely talked about out loud. It paints a picture of this vast, totally uncommunicated reality. And whether you're a man experiencing this firsthand, or you're someone who loves one, this short piece holds the key to understanding a reality so many people carry around every single day. So let's just dive right into this and see exactly what's hiding beneath the surface.
There's 10,000 times more going on inside the head of a man than you have any idea. I just want to start by letting those words hang in the air for a second. Really take a moment and absorb that statement. This is the very opening line from our source material, and wow, it works as an immediate, powerful hook. It completely shatters that deeply ingrained assumption we all have that a quiet exterior somehow equals a quiet mind. The speaker isn't just saying, there are a few hidden thoughts or a couple of worries tucked away in there. No, they're establishing this central theme of a vast, overwhelming, and entirely unseen mental reality. It's a reality defined by profound isolation because, as the quote so bluntly puts it, the outside observer simply has any idea about the sheer volume, the absolute magnitude of what's actually happening internally.
Section 1. The Hidden Internal Reality. Grasping the unseen scale of emotion. Now, what's really fascinating here is the hyperbole they use. 10,000. It's an astronomical number, and it visually anchors us to the sheer volume of unspoken thoughts. Now, obviously, the speaker isn't using this as a strict mathematical fact. It's more of a dramatic multiplier meant to force us to drastically expand our perception. You see, human brains naturally struggle to comprehend scale, right? Especially when it comes to the internal experiences of someone else. So the speaker is basically forcing us to multiply our baseline assumptions. If you look at a man and think you totally understand what's on his mind, the source is telling you to take that assumption and literally multiply it by 10,000. That is the true scale of the hidden burdens being described here. It immediately sets up this dynamic where the external perception is drastically, almost unimaginably, mismatched with the internal reality. It's asking us to confront our own ignorance about the things we just can't see.
But you might be wondering, why does it stay hidden? Why not just talk about it? Well, the source identifies this crucial dual problem, a twofold paralysis that traps those 10,000 thoughts inside. First off, the text states he doesn't know how to express them. There's this fundamental lack of vocabulary or really any communication strategy for this specific type of pain. I mean, think about how incredibly frustrating it is when you just can't find the right word for a fleeting feeling. Now imagine that exact same frustration, but applied to your deepest, darkest struggles, day in and day out. And then second, he doesn't know what to do about it. This is a total lack of actionable solutions. It's one thing to have a problem. It's another thing to have a problem you can't articulate, and yet another entirely to have a problem you can't articulate and cannot solve. This dual lack of know-how creates a complete gridlock in the mind, basically forcing those 10,000 thoughts to just circle endlessly without any viable exit strategy.
Moving right along to Section 2. The Fear of Vulnerability. Why the silence is maintained.
This brilliant sequence right here perfectly illustrates a mental checklist of fear. The speaker outlines a very specific, step-by-step sequence of anticipated rejection that plays out in a man's head when he even considers opening up. So, step 1, he imagines taking the immense risk. He puts it out there and communicates it. He finally breaks the silence. But then, the very next step, step 2, is this immediate aggressive pushback. He imagines being shot down. Notice the highly defensive, almost violent imagery there. Then, step 3, character assassination. He imagines being called a fool. And finally, step 4, the ultimate fear, being called weak. This entire agonizing sequence, it happens internally before a single word is ever even spoken aloud. The source presents this not as some vague, maybe possibility, but as a presumed certainty in the mind of the man carrying the burden. It's a calculated risk assessment where the guaranteed outcome is emotional injury. It's a trial that happens entirely in a man's mind where he's acting as the judge, jury, and executioner of his own vulnerability.
Let's really zero in on that last word for a minute. Weak. This is the ultimate deterrent. The source presents this specific label as the absolute worst-case scenario. It's literally the final nail in the coffin of communication. To be called weak in this context is framed as such an intolerable outcome that it forces men to actively choose the crushing weight of their internal burdens over the temporary relief of sharing them. I mean, the fear of this single four-letter word is powerful enough to maintain the absolute silence of those 10,000 thoughts we talked about earlier. It acts as this invisible, impenetrable wall.
It dictates behavior entirely through the threat of shame, making sure that internal reality stays securely locked away from the rest of the world.
And that brings us to Section 3, Bridging the Empathy Gap, the impact of hidden struggles.
Just take a look at this profound contrast. On side A, we've got the internal reality, and the source uses incredibly strong visceral language for this. It describes the man as carrying the burdens and the hell inside. Hell implies this agonizing, tormenting, inescapable suffering, right? It's a word reserved for the absolute worst of human experiences. But then look at side B, the external facade. The text points out that he's not even showing it. The juxtaposition here is just staggering. You have a literal psychological inferno occurring internally, but it's paired with a completely stoic, utterly unreadable exterior. The source really wants us to vividly realize that the absence of visible struggle does absolutely not mean the absence of profound internal agony. They are carrying this massive, burning weight completely invisibly, just navigating everyday life while internally managing a total crisis.
Let's see how all of this builds up to the climax of the source text. I wish more women understood that. This is the concluding plea. After detailing the sheer volume of hidden thoughts, the agonizing paralysis of not being able to express them, that intense fear of rejection, and the silent agony of carrying hell inside, the speaker directs their ultimate wish outward. They are asking for external understanding, specifically hoping that women might grasp and help bridge this massive emotional disconnect. It's a profound, incredibly vulnerable shift. They go from simply describing an isolated internal state to explicitly asking for a witness to it. It's like reaching across the void, just hoping that someone on the other side can finally comprehend the true weight of the invisible burden. So, if we distill this entire analysis down, the core takeaway from our explainer today is really this. The source text is fundamentally a poignant plea for empathy. It's desperately asking the observer to look past that stoic exterior, to ignore the convincing silence, and to assume the presence of really complex, heavy burdens. It argues that the deep human desire for mutual understanding is constantly, desperately fighting against this deeply ingrained habit of silent suffering. The speaker wants the world to know that the silence you're observing, it isn't emptiness. Actually, it's the exact opposite. That silence is just the sound of someone holding back a flood, simply because they are terrified of the consequences of letting go.
Which leaves us with a pretty critical, undeniable challenge. Based on everything we've unpacked today from this short text, I want to leave you with this final provocative question. How can we create a space where these burdens no longer have to be hidden? If the fear of being shot down or called weak is the very thing maintaining this silent hell, what actions, what changes in how we listen and respond to the men in our lives are required to actually dismantle that fear? I'd love for you to think deeply about that as you go through your week. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning the surface, and I'll see you next time.